My name is Brian Luciani, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer for SMB Franchise Advisors. And what we do is for the last 15 years, we've helped over 550 brands to franchise their business. And so whether that means starting from your existing business to franchising, bringing in your first couple franchisees, whether you're an existing franchisor and you're now looking to grow your business, you're stuck at 5 units, 10 units, 20 units. How can we and our team, 17 people now across all different disciplines as fractional experts, really help you from a CFO's financial perspective or a CMO's marketing perspective or a CDO's development perspective? And prior to coming into the team here about 2 years ago now full-time, I was an investment banker at Goldman Sachs for about 6 years, working operations and technology in all different parts of the firm for client coverage, and then also worked at Barclays and made direct investments into technology companies and help with the real community and ecosystem for startup founders. So working with startup founders in a very unique and value additive way is really in my blood. And this at SMB is a family business. My uncle has been in the franchise business for almost 40 years and has really, built this company around the values and the principles that he set up at several other firms to make them successful. Places like Rita's Water Ice, Hollywood Tans, and numerous other brands across the United States. So when you think about starting to franchise your business, there's sort of 3 things that you need, right? And the first thing might take 3 or 4 months, and that's going to be your franchise disclosure document. So the thing in the United States that is standard across all franchise brands, what is going to be your disclosure of the amount of money it takes to start up, the kinds of people, the biographies of the founders, the cost or expectation of what you could make running the business in an item 19. So there's 23 items that go into this document. And together with a franchise attorney, our team will help prepare that. My chief technology officer, director of financial planning, and our CFO spend the first 3 to 4 months of any project working on getting you to be a legal franchise company with this new document that you need across any of the United States where you might want to launch a franchise. The next part of the process is all about marketing, branding, and sales. And so we have a chief marketing officer, a chief development officer. We have creative in-house with our executive team who are creative strategists. They're going to work on what do you need to talk about franchising? What are the things that tell your story, the brand story? We're going to do brand discovery. We're going to focus on creating assets for you like your website content, like the pull-up banners for a trade show or the brochures you might need, right? Whatever based on your concept. Are you mobile? Are you brick and mortar? Do you need a window cling with a QR code, right? What are the things you need designed from a marketing perspective once we understand the brand and story that we can build to tell that story, which will create the funnel for any potential franchisees that are coming into the system. And so when you think about signing a franchisee, from the time they sign to the time they open, what happens in that part of the development cycle? Are there real estate considerations? Do they need help reviewing a lease? What are things around architecture? Do you need HVAC in every single unit if it's a spa concept, right? What are these things that you're going to be leading a franchisee through that you as a franchisor have already done in your site? We're going to synthesize that into a custom sales process. We're going to work that process with you. My chief development officer is there to guide every step of the way, every question you have as somebody gets to the point of being open as a franchisee. The last part is going to be all about operations, training, and compliance. What are the things that once a franchisee is open, they need to do to run the business? What are your brand standards? What are the things you have to do versus the things that you should do, right? Best practices. We're going to help create all of that and roll it up into a franchise operations manual. So a part of this is what you need to do, key in the door in the morning, key out the door at night, what you do all day. But a lot of what you need to do is really focused on training and people and building the brand standard. This is the exact shade of purple you can use. This is the exact territory and scope that you're going to be allowed to offer services in or provide services to. What are those services? If you're the spa concept I mentioned earlier, You can't start selling hot dogs in the front of the store, right? You have to do what the brand standards dictate to keep consistency in the brand. And so as a franchisor, that's your protection, because these are independent operators, right? Running their businesses successfully, and you're going to support them to be successful, but really within the guide of what you envision the brand being as it scales. And so we'll create all that documentation, all that sort of process for you that you'll work through with your franchise candidates. Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because as soon as you get legal in that first tranche of the project, everybody wants to start selling franchises right away. And that's the second tranche of our project, right? So I totally understand and I agree that's where you should go next. The question is how you get there. We tell people the thing that will make you successful in the franchise business is acknowledging that you're in a new business. You are in the franchise industry now. You have your business, which is your core. I'll use the banker T chart, right? When you've got your growth that you're thinking about doing, what is that growth going to be? Are you thinking of raising some money from friends and family? Are you going to go to the bank and get a loan? Or are you going to use the proceeds from your business, reinvest them in growing the business, and start to franchise? If you do that and your business can support it, right? That would be a key criteria for if you should franchise your business. If you can do that, you've decided now that the franchise industry is the way you're growing the business. And so really doubling down on how to sell franchises, what the process is, what the validation is, what all the different things are as it relates to growing a business. They're going to come not from you being behind the counter at your store. They're going to come from you coaching and counseling and guiding and supporting these people who are independent operators. And so we talk a lot about the move from player to coach and how you grow the business, because I think your first franchisees, no matter what your concept is, are going to be people who are currently aware, whether they're customers, friends and family, people who know what you do, people who are impressed by it, and people who think that they could also want to get out of corporate, want to be their own boss, but don't want to do it by themselves from ground zero, right? Being able to really functionally be a part of your team is something that communicating from an organic lead perspective is always the best way to start. So there's a couple ways, right? And what I would tell folks is that once you're in the franchise industry, you notice that it depends on your part of the market. So if you're a big full service restaurant, you're going to have a different way that you find buyers and approach buyers than you might if you're a mobile business that goes to people's homes to repair machinery, right? A washing machine that's broken or something like this. The kind of business that you're in and that vertical component, right, is going to drive a lot of the growth. So somebody who can organically, maybe in the restaurant space, sell one or two because of current customers, friends and family, people who are interested and know the concept, they might be a good candidate to then go to a restaurant show and really be on the floor with other providers of services in the restaurant space, in the multi-unit restaurant space. There's a whole conference dedicated just to multi-unit franchise brands and the franchisees that are looking for those opportunities. A lot of folks now as franchisees, right, they're really sophisticated. They're looking at these businesses and they're saying, okay, if I have one, I could do pretty good. If I have two or three, I could do really good. And if I have one of three different brands, I could do amazing. I could really diversify what I'm offering to my market. I could be really thorough. I could share district management, my own team, right? The franchisee does that, not the franchisor. So we see some clients now that are looking for this category of multi-unit, multi-brand operators. And the Mumbo operator as a franchisee is a really interesting target based on what kind of business you're in and what kind of affiliations you might have. So look, at the end of the day, we say at SMB, it's our trademark actually, that it's all about the relationship. So we're really, really focused on helping our clients to cultivate those relationships, starting with your organic ones to sell a few franchises, and then growing into the franchise ecosystem through maybe broker networks, through these trade shows and events, through these other channels. We host our own events, closed door events for our clients to meet with franchise sales organizations, other companies who help you to really grow your brand as you've seen the validation continue from an organic perspective. Look, I think territory mapping is one of the first things we help a client do when we're looking at building their franchise disclosure document, because you need to say to somebody, when you buy the business as a franchise, you get this area to work within. And you can service it this way. Maybe we have a restaurant concept in the pizza space that has a brick and mortar, but also offers food trucks. And they say, if you're deep enough into a market and you hit certain KPIs, the key performance indicators that will help build for franchising, then you get the opportunity to add a food truck, right, as the business grows. And so those are the kinds of things that we look for to really help validate the brand and the concept from a territory perspective. And as far as the tools go, look, it needs to be easy. It needs to be simple. It needs to be something that no matter how complex the market is based on number of people that live there, median income in an area, county lines versus geographic hurdles, right? The number of times that we'll look sort of at the middle of the country here in the United States and say, the Mississippi River is a barrier, right? And so what do you do in this side? What do you do on that side? They're probably two different territories, even though they look very similar. Maybe one person is sophisticated enough to service both areas, but you have to understand traffic constraints, timing to service, right? All the other KPIs that drive the business. So those are the things that very softly influence the territory structure that will help a client define. And the way in which we do that needs to be through really, really creative, simple tools. For a lot of our clients, as they get to the, they've hit their organic growth where they know a market, right, it's in their backyard, they might not need a full tool yet. They might not need a tech stack that supports this deepening of territory mapping and planning, right? But as soon as they look at somewhere that's not their backyard, that's not a 1 to 2 hour radius, right, from a service perspective, we recommend mapping. Yeah, so I think the only thing that we ever promise a client, right, is that as their business grows, they're going to change. I want them to come back every year for us to renew their item 19 when their disclosure comes due in April. Think of it like taxes, right? Every April, you're going to have that franchise disclosure document updated. There will be things around the financials to update. There will be things around the build out cost, right? Before COVID, costs were a certain way. Now after COVID, costs are another way to really grow the business and build out a unit, right? Just construction and labor. So making sure that those things are updated and very transparent to your franchisees are some of the things you'll need to do every year. And as you do that, as a franchisor, you'll go, man, I wish I didn't do these 5 things when I started, and I wish I did do these 20 other things. That's part of life, and we continuously improve, right? As the system is live and is growing. Compared to data from the International Franchise Association, our brands are twice as likely to continue growing and registering in those registration states, really keeping up with their disclosures and growing their systems. And we're proud of the fact that that's not because of us, that's because of who they are as founders and the systems that they have around them. So all I would say is that you're going to have changes and you're going to have, I'm remiss to say issues, but you're going to have the growth and the pain from growth that happens in the system. That's also forward motion, right? And so in franchising, what's really good is that you do have a community of people to help you, whether it's your franchisees, because they're going to be calling you with ideas and thoughts, and you're going to say no to some of them. You're going to say yes to some of them too. Dunkin' Donuts is known for the fact that a Munchkin, the little donut hole, was born from a franchisee's idea, right? And so these are the kinds of creative solutions that, working in a community, you overcome together, then you add for future franchisees as required SKUs or vendor relationships or different territory structures and other things. I would say something happens right between the organic person who might be your first franchisee and is looking at 1 or 2 units and knows their backyard and is ready for you to support them within that 1 or 2 hour radius, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is somebody from another area says, I love it. I love the concept. I love the team. I think it's an amazing brand, semicolon. I want to have 5 of them because in order for me to make it successful, I need to really seed my market with this concept. And I need to have 5 trucks on the road, power washing houses, or 3 restaurants with a plan to open 3 more, right? And so as you look at that, it absolutely creates, and justifiably, a variable structure in your territory. And so you're going to let somebody do something who's on a development schedule or who's building that sort of multi-unit, multi-brand opportunity that you're going to be a part of very differently than you would let a solo, prop come and open 1 unit. So you need to be flexible. You need to be willing to kind of continue exploring what works for both you as a franchisor to make sense for the business. You don't want to lock up a huge, area with the promise of this future growth, but you want to scale into it over time and have the tools that allow you to do that. I would say there's 2 sort of things there, right? The market conditions is a unique one because franchising is actually almost a direct hedge to the wider economy from an inflation perspective. So when people feel a little slow about the economy in the United States, it's been a long year here for that in 2024. Franchising has done very well. People who are laid off from their corporate job but have their 401k and know they can roll that money over tax-free to start a small business, they might take that chance on themselves rather than waiting to go in to find another business to work at as a more traditional employee. So we do see as a segment franchising continue to grow and almost in the face of some of these wider economic conditions. On the technology side, I would say it really is a balance because franchisees are people who want to be in business for themselves, but not by themselves. They want your support. They want your guidance and coaching. They love your product. They love your brand, whatever it is, right? So you can use technology to find leads in a very different way. AI is going to continue driving some of that top of funnel change for what a franchise development program might look like with a cold lead, somebody who's just off the internet, Googling, want to own a business in this kind of category, right? But it is still a relationship business. And you need to constantly come back to how you humanize a lot of those relationships, because that's what's going to create the brand equity. It's not going to be that you have 100 units open, but everyone hates each other and you go to sell the system to private equity. They're going to do validation calls and you're not going to pass, right? You're not going to pass muster. We help our clients deal with that exercise when they're ready for it and also plan for it, a year or 2 years in advance sometimes, to really make sure the system is resilient and that the people in the system feel good. It is a community that you continue to activate for future growth, and that the operations today justify the privilege of growing in the future. So I think technology makes the lead funnel look very different. I think it puts more into the top of the funnel, but as you work your way down to folks, it's important to have a sales process that's very human. It's important to have a sales process that's very custom, and really then use technology for the parts that scale. Things like creative territory structuring, things like the developments of a franchise agreement when you're going to do multi-units, things like the training library, moving that from a PDF binder with you being on the phone to a real dedicated resource like a One Huddle, some of these other technology platforms. So lots of those things happen as you scale the business, but you don't need to have all that today, right? You build that over time as you bring the boat closer to the dock. Oh my gosh, my one piece of advice, if I only have one, tell people you're a franchise. It should not be the best kept secret that you could be in business as a partner with a brand that you know and love. When you start to franchise your business, tell people. If you think franchise is the F word, there's other ways, right? Own your own. We're growing. Franchise opportunities now available. What I remind folks all the time is that you award franchises. As a franchisor, you permit the franchisee to be a part of what you're doing and what you're building. That should feel good for both parties. So as you go through those conversations and you look at those kinds of things and you question those kinds of details, absolutely saying, yes, we're a franchise now, we're growing, and would you like to be a part of it, right? To anybody who is already affiliated with your brand. Please check us out. SMBfranchising.com is our website, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're excited to hear from you about how we can help you grow.